Yeah, it's mindset cafe, we all got that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devin, and I am thrilled to welcome our guest today. It is John Hewitt. He is the legendary entrepreneur. He is a best-selling author, and he is one of the most influential figures in the tax preparation industry as well as the franchise industry. John is the visionary behind two of the largest retail chains, both Jackson Hewitt and Liberty Tax Service. He's grew his businesses to over 6,000 offices combined, which is an extraordinary accomplishment. So it is my honor to welcome you onto the show today, John. Thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my pleasure. And actually, it's 10,000 offices now.
Oh, that is my mistake. 10,000 offices. That is not a small, gap. That is huge. That is so amazing. I just have to start off by saying congratulations on that huge accomplishment.
Thank you. I'm very, very blessed.
So let's dive into that a little bit, right? Let's start there. When did you know that you wanted to become an entrepreneur, and where did you see that vision kind of forming for you?
I give all that credit to my dad. When I was I was working for H&R Block. I was loving life. 30 years old, managing 250 locations. And my dad was a CFO of a public company, and he liked the apple that he bought by mail back in the 70s when there weren't even 500,000 apples in the country. And he liked it better than the mainframe that was running his public company. And he decided that we should computerize taxes. And so it took him about a year to convince me, but eventually I left H&R Block and we built the first tax software for an Apple computer. And that was I started being an entrepreneur in 1981.
That's awesome. So you're working for H&R Block and you were managing 250 locations. Were you in like the tax services yourself, or were you just from the managerial standpoint?
When I was in college, I started at H&R Block. I took a course and I loved it. It was the most interesting course I'd ever taken. So I started working part-time as a tax preparer, and I worked my way up into the management. In my second year, my manager went into the hospital. They thought he had a heart attack. He only had anxiety attacks, but they hadn't, back in 1980 or 70 rather, they hadn't invented anxiety attacks yet. So they put him in the hospital and asked me to leave college and run and become a block manager. And so I did.
So I want to take a little tangent real quick, because I'm very keen on words and how people use words, right? And so you mentioned they haven't invented, anxiety attacks. Can you elaborate why you chose to use the word invented?
Because they as I've aged, they've invented new names for things. So now, when I was a child in school, they didn't have ADHD or ADD, and so they've added diagnoses, and so they've invented new diagnoses over the years, over the decades. Every year, there's new terminology that comes out. So mostly it's they didn't have a name for that condition.
Got you. It makes a lot of sense. I just thought it was an interesting, word and to use, and it does make a lot of sense though. I feel like, especially now, each year there's a new strain of something, a new disease for something, a new reason why someone is the way they are, and it's like, it kind of gets a little bit funny or, laughable to a degree.
Latest is like DEI and HB, whatever those letters are, HBQ, whatever. I mean, they're inventing more and more terminology for more and more small things.
No, you're right. So let's go back to, you were managing 250 locations. when did you start to create your own company in terms of, Liberty Tax and Jackson Hewitt?
After we developed this tax software, you're not old enough to remember a world without computers, but people didn't understand computers. No one had ever touched one. No one had ever, didn't have any. You couldn't type into a computer back before there was the desktops back in the late 70s. So no one wanted it. And I got lucky and I found a company in Virginia Beach called Mel Jackson Tax Service. Mel had died. We bought 6 offices from his widow. We changed the name to Jackson Hewitt. And so I started my journey at Jackson Hewitt with 6 offices in August of 1982. And my goal was to have H&R Block had 9,000. Our goal from day one was to have 9,001. And so to grow by 8,995 offices. Well, we didn't make it to 9,001. We did make it to 6,000. And Jackson Hewitt became a $1 billion company.
That is crazy. So then where did Liberty Tax Service come into the mix? If you were already scaling Jackson Hewitt, what was the reason behind, creating an additional, company and franchise system?
Along the way, 15 years later, I sold Jackson Hewitt was a public company and we sold the company. And I had a 3-year non-compete that covered virtually the entire United States. But having grown up in Buffalo, I knew the Canadian tax system. I had done Canadian returns. So we opened Liberty Tax in Canada while I was waiting for my non-compete to expire in the United States. And then in 2000, we came back to the United States. Now I had to compete against my own name, my own software, my own people. And yet, not only did we grow faster than Jackson Hewitt, we grew faster than Jackson Hewitt and H&R Block combined. We opened 4,000 offices in 12 years. My second public company, and this one was worth $500 million.
Wow. So, I mean, that's so awesome. I mean, not only did you have the visionary mindset, but you also were able to think outside the box and realize that, my non-compete's only for the U.S. I could still go into Canada, and, I knew the Canadian, tax system. So I think that's so awesome because you were getting those initial hurdles overcame so that when your non-complete, ended, that you were basically ready to hit the ground running. Now, I am curious though, why did you want to, after selling a company, right? And I do want to dive a little bit more into, taking it public and stuff like that. But after selling a company in a certain industry, why did you decide to go back into that same industry with an additional company?
Well, actually, we looked at, I took my team, I took 4 of my top people, and we looked for other opportunities in other industries. Mm-hmm. However, we found at the same time we decided to open in Canada, so we were still in the tax business. And the people that were running Jackson Hewitt were doing a poor job of running Jackson Hewitt. And Tom Block, the last Block family member at H&R Block, had left H&R Block. So both companies were not doing a good job. And so I knew there was an opportunity for a third player. There's always an opportunity for at least 2, if not 3 or 4 players in every industry. And there was just the top 2. So I saw the opportunity with both of the top companies struggling. After all, I was the most, with no Block family in the business, I was the most accomplished in the entire industry. And so it seemed almost automatic that we just started competing in the U.S.
No, that is very interesting. I mean, and a lot of these questions too is really my interest. I actually am running a fitness franchise, and we just launched our franchise, the beginning of last year. So it's really interesting, your journey and your growth, and so one of the other questions I do want to ask as well, and your mindset behind it is, you're running a company, you're growing a company. Why take it public? Because I've heard good, I've heard bad things about, taking it public. I've seen it in my industry with fitness. Someone took a company public and it led to a huge downfall in the company. So what was the reason for taking it public?
You're right. It's there's a lot of negatives against going public, and especially in the starting in the 21st century when they have the Sarbanes-Oxley rules. It got very expensive and onerous to be a public company today. The only reason or the major reason I went public was each time I had stockholders, and the stockholders had made a lot of money. If you invested $5,000 with me in 1982 when I started, it was worth $2 million 15
Wow.
years later. So there was no way to monetize that. They couldn't get their cash. They had a piece of paper worth $2 million. And so my stockholders kind of demanded that I give them a method for monetizing their investment. So I went public to satisfy my shareholders.
Oh, got you. So it was more of like a way to kind of create a dividend system to a degree instead of having to kind of pay out, outright, those dividends.
It was exactly. It was. We could pay dividends each year, and they could get their money over a long time, or allow them to be able to buy and sell the stock at will. And so that's the most common way to monetize an investment in our country.
No, I think that is smart, but I do see how you're saying it. It can be expensive, and there are so many different restrictions and fees and stuff that are coming out. I feel like each year, so I can't even imagine taking a company public and what that would lead to. But I do want to ask, moving this forward, what are some of the key factors that really allowed you to grow the first company and outdo the first company with the second company in the U.S.? What do you think some of those key factors for you as an individual allowed you to scale those companies?
I did a management series of webinars, and in one of the webinars, the title of it is "The Top 10 Ways to Grow Exponentially." So that's an hour presentation. So it's actually when I sat down, I love top 10 because of the Bible and the 10 Commandments. So I have, in each of my companies today, I have top 10 most important things you need to do to succeed. I have top 10 principles. I publish my top 10 franchisees each week. So I love top 10 lists, but actually I came up with 13. And I still call it the top 10. And I think I'm allowed because in the Big Ten football conference in college, there's 19 teams. They still call it the Big Ten. So there's actually 13 important things about growing exponentially. And remember, it's very rarefied air. I built 2 of the top 100 retail franchise chains in this country. No one else has ever done that. No one else has built more than one. And now with my new Zoom and Grooming franchise, my mobile dog grooming, I'm going to have 3 of the largest or top 100 retail franchise chains in the country. So no one's else built more than one. So it's a long answer to that question. It takes me an hour to go through just the basics of what you need to do to grow exponentially. But essentially, it comes down to the most important thing, Devin, is that perseverance. God doesn't put anyone here to skate. We all face adversity. We all have our barriers and our anchors that drag us back, and winners just always get up and keep going. So the most important thing in growing and being successful in anything, whether it's business or a relationship, anything, is perseverance. And it's important to have the drive and to set big, hairy, audacious goals. When I started, I already said that H&R Block had 9,000 and I had 6. And I said, we're going to have 9,001. That's That's ridiculous. That's not logical in any sense. That's totally illogical, and it borders on the edge of being crazy. And then Deb and I came back in the United States in 2000 when my non-compete ended. Now I had to compete against 9,000 H&R Block offices and 6,000 Jackson Hewitt offices. I had to compete against my own name, my own software, my own people, my own system. It's totally illogical that I could do that. And so you have to set big, hairy, audacious goals. You have to have huge drive and huge commitment to, and never give up. Always persevere. Always overcome adversity. You're going to get knocked down. Always get up and keep going.
Well, I love that, because I mean, that never give up phrase is actually our gym motto and our gym slogan. So I think that's so awesome. You know, it is true though. And I mean, again, on plenty of podcasts and interviewed a handful of people I've never met or heard of. Yeah, there we go. So, I mean, I've been on a handful of podcasts and everything, and I've never met someone that has done something that is that almost not irrational, but like almost unbelievable. You know, where not once, but twice. And the second time competing against the first thing you created, like, again, like that is my hat's off to you. Like, I've been looking forward to this call for, you know, a month. You could ask my business partner, you know, so it is so cool that you've done that. You know, what were some of the biggest challenges when you were scaling your business? This, you know, the second one, because you mentioned you were facing your first company, not H&R Block, that we already know that they were in the top tier, but your people, your software, your team, you know, your systems and all that kind of stuff. What were some of the strategies and mindset, you know, that you evolved that allowed you to transition and really put everything into full gear?
Well, you mentioned you're in personal fitness, and in every industry that you're in, you have to have your differentiator, right? Why should people go to you versus one of your competitors, right? Why shouldn't they go to kickboxing or Pilates or hot yoga? Or, I mean, there's always competition, and you have to differentiate yourself from your competition. And so it was easy the first time because, first of all, there was just one. There was H&R Block. Mm-hmm. Secondly, we were computerized and they weren't. So our differentiator at Jackson Hewitt versus H&R Block, a big, huge differentiator is we were computerized and they were doing things by hand. So it gave us a huge strategic advantage. Well, now we came in 15 years later, the whole world is computerized. So the computer is no longer a weapon that can differentiate you from your competitor. So we had to devise a strategy to do things different. And so one of the things we did, it mostly came down to two things. One is we have the best system in the industry, and that's because of my experience. I'm the great granddaddy of taxes. This is my 56th tax season. There's never anyone that's ever done close to what I've done. I founded the number 2 tax service with 6,000 locations, number 3 tax service with 4,000 locations. I worked 12 years at H&R Block, and they grew from 3,000 to 9,000. But another thing is guerrilla marketing. We're experts at guerrilla marketing. And just the name Liberty Tax lends itself to guerrilla marketing. So we had a costume character dancing on the street. Now, in this country, there are 35 million businesses, and they're all trying to gain your attention. Now, all of them are doing the same thing. They're on Facebook and digital marketing or TV or radio, newspaper, direct mail, signs, billboards. They're all doing the same things. But Devin, on the way to work each day in January, how many costume characters do you see out in the street waving at you? And it was just Liberty Tax in a Liberty Tax costume. And so it set us apart. And we went into business to business in Liberty costumes. We had roadside parties out on the street with Liberty costumes. And it set us apart and got us much quicker brand name than anyone. So within 3 to 4 years, our name gets as big as H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt because of the neighborhood Lady Liberty out in the street that's dancing. So it was guerrilla marketing. And part of that is even things like we do something that no one does in something no one does in every industry. We call our customers and ask them how we did for them. And no one calls their customers. They send them an email, or you hand them a card, or send them an email, or send them a text. How do we do, right? All companies do that. No one calls them. So that we learned that our customers love to be asked. And we also learned that, and I would guess it's true in fitness too, that in tax preparation or dog grooming, for example, my groomers and my taxpayers aren't good at asking for referrals. And possibly your fitness people aren't good at asking for referrals. So we have this very personable person call up, ask how we did, and 95% of people are happy. They ask for a referral, and our referrals go up 50%. So we do things like that to differentiate ourselves, objectively differentiate ourselves from our competition.
That is so awesome. And yeah, I mean, we have a referral system here, but I mean, that calling and really connecting with them it's unbeatable. You know, sending them a letter in the mail, sending them an email. Most of the people give you their junk email anyways, you know, that they're not reading, you know? And so it's like that call and connecting with them, you know, person to person, it is undeniable and it is unbeatable. So I think that is so cool that you do separate yourself and all your, you know, guerrilla marketing and stuff. That is, I can picture the Liberty Tax, you know, suit and everything. I've seen it before, so I know exactly what you're talking about. What are some of the mindset shifts that you had to have that allowed you to transition from just an entrepreneur to the CEO of such a huge company, and you know, someone that's leading thousands of locations?
The most important thing is that to win, you have to have the number one system. To have the number one system, it has to be improving. If you're not improving, your competitor's gaining on you. So you have to have a lifetime commitment to improve, and to be great. You have to understand you can't be incredibly successful without being uncomfortable. You have to experience discomfort if you want to accomplish anything extraordinary. If you just think about the discomfort Donald Trump has experienced, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, felonies and you know, being shot, and I haven't experienced quite that level of opposition. But you're going to have to face adversity, extreme adversity, and your biggest enemy is yourself. You know, the most important 10 two-letter words are, if it is to be, it is up to me. And so, you know, people ask me, Devin, what's the biggest thing you worry about? And I say, I don't worry about our competition, our industry, our society, our country. I worry about ourselves. We are our own worst enemy. So it's not from the outside that's going to destroy us. It's from the inside. And so what I had to learn is a lifetime of improvement.
I think that is so awesome. That is so true. And you mentioning that you have to experience discomfort, you know, in some form or fashion and to some degree, I think it's so true, because I mean, something's only valuable because of that discomfort in the business sense, right? If it was easy, to do what you've done, then everyone would do it, and that wouldn't be such a high accomplishment, right? Let's say in the fitness industry, getting a six pack is hard. So people that see other people with six packs, they know, like, oh my goodness, like, look at them, right? And it's because they know they put the work in, and they had to go through those uncomfortable moments of missing, basically holiday meals and all those kind of things. So there is a level of discomfort you have to face, or adversity you have to face to essentially reap the benefit of the rewards, of delayed gratification. So I think that is so true. Now, you've been named, in the accounting world as one of the top 100 most influential people in the industry for over a decade. What are some of the leadership traits that do you think that has led you to contribute to this recognition?
I've changed so many lives that I've created over 1,000 millionaires. And I brought in over 5,400 franchisees, and they had hundreds of thousands of employees. So I've made the world a better place, and by changing tens of thousands of people's lives. So now, and we've done, my businesses have done 100 million tax returns. So Jackson Hewitt and Liberty and ATAX, now my latest tax business, we've done over 100 million tax returns. So think of it, we're changing customers' lives by doing great tax work occasionally we can save people a lot of money. We virtually always save them aggravation. People think of going to the taxpayer like going to a dentist. They're not fond of it, so we can make it easier for them. So I've changed millions of customers, hundreds of thousands of employees, and thousands of franchisees. And that is that's what I want to be. People ask me what I want to be remembered for. That's the number one thing, is how many lives I've improved.
And actually, what was one of the coolest things before we hopped on today, one of my first episodes I actually did with someone in one of the networking groups I'm a part of. He's actually one of your franchisees. He has 3 locations. And so when we linked up, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'd met a franchisee and now I'm getting to meet, the franchisor. That's so cool. And it was like this whole circle thing that in my head had played out, so I think that is so awesome. And I can, from firsthand experience, I can say you are changing people's lives. How do you think that ambition and humility and the balance between the two play a role in leadership?
I think that leadership, it's easy to go out in front and lead, but if you're going to be followed, leaders create followers, or then the greatest leaders create followers who are leaders. Mm-hmm. The way I think of it is, think of back in the 1800s, there were the Cherokee Indians, right? And there was a whole bunch of little tribes where there was hundreds of people that lived in one area, and they were chief of that. But then there was chief of chiefs. The greatest leaders get to be chief of chiefs.
I think that's so true. So how do you think that humility plays a role in that, or like in being a leader?
It's you have to understand that you're a servant, and I do it through servant leadership. So the people that report to me, we sit down every year and we create a budget. We have our principles and we have to follow our principles, but then we create a budget and we agree on, they submit a budget and I edit it. We discuss it and we come up, okay, this is how much you're going to spend and this is what you're going to achieve, the results you're going to achieve. Once we set that goal with that budget, from then on, I work for them. I'm here to help you, right? Your job is to accomplish what you told me you're going to accomplish. I'm here to help you in every way to accomplish that. But it's your goal, and you have to give them freedom. Let them make mistakes. Let them learn, because it's not just one guy got to be committed to improve. If we're going to improve the organization, everyone has to be committed to improve. And that means change. And so every year, one of the things we do in our franchise system is we go to our franchisees every year and say, how can we improve? And at our convention, and we write down every idea. I mean, even if it sounds stupid, and then we get the officers of our corporation and the franchisor and a group of franchisees, and we decide which things are we going to change this year, which things are we going to change sometime in the future, and what are we never going to change. And I'm happy to say I've been doing that for 30 years, and every year we are able to implement more than 50% of the changes that very year. So it's listening. Listening is the most, listening and acting on the advice is the most important thing in being a leader. Great leader.
No, I think that is so true. So what would your advice be to entrepreneurs who are just starting their journey? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, especially when they're new in business, they feel like they have to have all the answers. So what would you tell them to kind of take as, a key takeaway from what you were just saying? I mean, I think that was so huge in that.
I say anyone that thinks they're a perfectionist or has to have all the answers is an idiot. And, I've been doing this for 56 years, long before you were thought of. And I find it just hysterically funny if anyone thinks that they've reached their pinnacle and they're all knowing. There's the journey is the joy, the journey, and you have to have a constant commitment to improvement. I've never met anyone that was close to knowing it all.
So that is so true. I mean, you don't have to be the smartest one in the group. I mean, you have a team, and that's who hopefully the people that you're bringing on your team are smarter than you in certain roles, and collectively, more brains, work better than just one, right? Believe me, I mean, I was guilty of it in the beginning too, thinking I had to be the one with all the answers and not using network groups or not reaching out and doing podcasts like this, and thinking that to be an entrepreneur, you had to solve every problem or know all the answers. And so sometimes you just got to ask, sometimes you just got to ask the team, what do they think? Right. So I think that's so cool that what you're saying and how you guys do that each year.
It's not even sometimes, you always need to ask.
Yes. You always do need to ask. And that's something that, we do need to get better at as well. Cause I mean, obviously you're the proof behind it right there. How do you teach entrepreneurs, especially like newer entrepreneurs, right? How do you teach them to stop working in their business and start working on their business?
Do you know who invented that phrase, by the way?
I do not.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books. It's called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
I did read that book.
E-Myth. And unfortunately, and I liked the book so much that as soon as I read it about 30 years ago, in the early 90s, I bought one for every one of my franchisees, and I gave everyone a book. Well, a couple years later, he wrote a second, and he updated it to the E-Myth Revisited. Mm-hmm. And he left out some good parts. And so E-Myth was better than E-Myth Revisited. And so I've been trying, even recently, a year ago, he's dead now. His estate won't let me reprint E-Myth. So all you can get, unless you can find an isolated copy here and there, probably on Amazon. But if you go and look, it's called the E-Myth Revisited. Still good. Still talks about working on your business versus in your business. But it is a challenge. You're exactly right that most franchisors, most managers, or many, if not most, aren't good at delegation, and they can't get outside of facing and problem solving. They spend their day solving problems instead of looking ahead. It's a real talent to change to looking ahead and foreseeing problems and building systems to not get caught up in your problems. And so, and as you said, Michael Gerber, great phrase, work on your business and not in your business. But it all comes down to simplistically delegation. And if you don't delegate, then you can't be extraordinary. Or you can't get to 10,000 offices. You might get to 100 offices or 50 offices, but you can never get to be extraordinary accomplishment without utilizing other people. And to do that, you have to let go and trust other people and train them and monitor them and support them and trust them.
No, that is so true. So what role has mentorship played in your success? And are you mentoring others now? I know you mentioned a dog grooming brand and stuff like that. I'm assuming that's, a mentorship, or is that, something you created from the ground?
Yeah, the reason we call my company Loyalty Brands is I have so many people that have been with me. I have 20 people that have been with me over 20 years. And so we're available to mentor every new franchise that comes on board, every new employee that comes on board. It's not just John Hewitt, it's all my team. I have, my chief marketing officer has been with me since 1988. My CFO has been with me since 1989. And I have one guy was with me at H&R Block starting in 1970. So been with me 54 years. This is a 55th year. So I have a lot of great experience to help mentor individuals. And Devin, there is no school in this country on how to be a CEO. Mm-hmm. There's MBA programs, but MBA is totally different than being a CEO, right? It's right. Totally different skill set and knowledge base. So there's no school. And I've been a CEO since 1982. So this is my 43rd year. And I call it the school of hard knocks. And you have to be committed to learn from every experience, from your people, from your competitors, from your customers. You just have to have you're a constant student.
No, I think that is so true. And that is awesome. So Loyalty Brands is your current venture. Can you dive into, can you tell us a little bit more about what that is? I know you said you have, a whole team with you, but is that a mentorship? Is it, you're helping franchisors, grow? Like what is Loyalty Brands?
We have 8 different franchise systems. Mm-hmm. So, and they are in 3 different industries. One industry is tax and accounting. Secondly is construction, led by our roofing and siding. And then the fastest growing is pets. Pets is just exploding. The humanization of pets is incredible. And Entrepreneur Magazine came out today, the January issue, and it said that we're ranked, that we're the top 1% fastest growing in any industry in our franchisor is. And we are number 1 in pet grooming already, we're just 4 years old in mobile pet grooming. So it's exciting times, but it's growing by leaps and bounds. So we have 8 different franchisors under our leadership.
Okay. That's awesome. I think that is so cool. And like you said, there is no schooling, there's no degree you can get as a CEO, let alone, a franchisor. So I think that mentorship is really huge in that aspect. And, getting to learn from someone like yourself and a team that has been with you for, decades, it's invaluable. Like you can't put a price tag on that. That is so awesome that you're choosing to go that route, because you've already hit so many accomplishments that you could just keep doing what you're doing and not give back to a degree. Right. So I think that's so awesome that you've elaborated and extended your, giving back and making the world a better place by lifting up others and making, other people kings or, rulers in their own right. So again, I commend you for that. Before we wrap up, I do want to, ask you one question, and I didn't want to give you this question ahead of time so that you couldn't think of a cool answer. It has to be the first thing that comes to mind. But on the John Hewitt, legacy wall, right? It's not a tombstone, it's a legacy wall. You get to leave one message, one, wisdom that you've gotten to collect over your years as a CEO, your years in entrepreneurship, what would that one lasting message for the up and coming generations?
He improved tens of thousands of lives.
Okay. And so with that message, being, if someone wanted to essentially, let's say like the whole, not work in your business, work on your business, what would be one lesson that you would add to your message?
Learn to delegate. There are several things that I've not been able to teach people. I could never change someone's attitude. And attitude is everything. So Tom Watson Sr., founder of IBM, said, give me 100 great engineers or 100 great people with great attitudes. I'll take great attitude because you can teach engineering. But I've been able to teach delegation. So there are several good books on delegation, but learn to delegate. Don't do it all yourself. And even if you're a successful entrepreneur like yourself, you're a CEO of your own company. I mean, hire a maid to clean your house and someone to mow your lawn. Unless you love those activities, don't do things you don't like. If you're a great CEO, I built my companies are worth $2 billion of companies. My time's worth thousands of dollars an hour. If I can pay someone $30, $40, $50 an hour to do something, I need to do that and then use my time wisely. And you need to have downtime. You can't just go work at it and save $20 an hour by filling in for a maid or a chef delegate.
That is so awesome. That is an awesome legacy wall message and lesson. So where can people connect with you or learn more about what you got going on with Loyalty Brands or any of your other companies?
You can find me at loyaltybrands.com. And for your listeners and viewers, you can get a free copy of my book. There's a link to get a free copy of I Compete, and it's an autobiography on how I built great companies.
Awesome. And guys, that will be in the show notes, both the Loyalty Brands website as well as the link to that free book. So make sure you guys check that out. John, honestly, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know you're a busy man, so it means the world to me that you were able to hop on the Mindset Cafe and drop some knowledge for the audience.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. 'Cause in the game of life, mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle hard, I go against the current. 'Cause I know my mind is rich to be collected. positive thoughts, just in the game of life. Mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to